Can you hear it?
Yep.
I was born in a small town, and live in a small town. I died in a small town, oh, small community. Well, welcome, podcast listeners, to the Big H podcast. And Tony Streb is going to be my guest today. And Tony, I played that song for you, and I also played it for myself because we're both guys from a small town here in Hilton, New York, where we made our roots, we were educated, and we've come back to deliver more things for the community. And I kind of thought that was good for us. There's a lot of things in my background here. Um, I got the small sectional trophy up there. I bought. I got the Hilton football helmet I used to do when I did broadcasts for you, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But with me today is Anthony Tony Streb, who is a head groundskeeper now at the Hilton Central School District and has an enormous past within the school district and college in coaching. And Tony, it's great to have you today.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thanks for asking me to be a part of it. Something, last couple of days I've kind of been watching some of your episodes and something I'm really excited about. So I appreciate you asking me.
Well, great. Well, that's very good. Treat it like a job interview. Try, people here that are listening, some know you, some don't. So I think I look forward to learning a few more things about you. In order to start off things, though, we usually start off with some biographical information, where you were born, a little bit about your mom and dad, and your immediate family. So take it from there and deliver any remarks that you'd like.
Okay. So I was born right here in Rochester, New York. Kind of raised in the city a little bit for what my parents had told me till I was about 1, and then they decided to move out to Greece/Hilton. My parents, George and Karen Streb, they were brought up in Greece. My dad was a Greece Athena graduate. My mother was a Greece and Olympia graduate. Their names are Karen Streb and George Streb. Once we moved out to Hilton, we had my little sister, Kelly Streb. She's 2 years younger than myself. We attended Hilton School District. With that, I kind of bounced around a little bit between Northwood and the Village School. 1 year they had to close down Northwood because they were doing some remodeling and capital project work. So then we went to the Village for a year. I believe that was for my 3rd grade year when I had Mr. John Cooling, who, God rest his soul, was an incredible guy, great teacher, somebody who I remember that, he put a special spot in my mind just because he was able to build relationships and, talk to me about life, about sports, and obviously I'm big into sports, so it was kind of somebody that really stuck out in my memory there. After Village, I went back to Northwood, then went to Merton Williams Middle School, and then went to the high school and graduated from the high school in 1996. So with that, I kind of had an interesting road to college. Playing sports in high school, I wanted to play sports in college. And after my senior year in high school, I decided to go the prep school way and kind of work my way to college that way. I wasn't the worst student. I wasn't the best student. So I figured going to prep school to Wyoming Seminary down in Pennsylvania would help kind of pave my way to going to college to play football, which eventually ended up going to Long Island University for 1 year on scholarship to play football there. When I was down there, I was able to connect with a great uncle of mine that I was able to visit on a weekly basis, which was one of my father's uncles who they were very close. And I was able to kind of develop a great relationship with him the year that I was down there. And then I felt that I was a little too far away from home, and I'm kind of a family guy. And I wanted my family to be able to come and support me at football games and whatever I was going to be doing in college. So I ended up moving back home to play football and go to school at SUNY Brockport. And then I ended up graduating there in 2001. So it's kind of a little bit of schooling background. It's like I said, it took me a long, not the normal path to get to my graduating year in 2001, but it's something that I kind of cherish because I met a lot of great people along the way, especially in my prep school. Prep school was kind of an interesting path because there was 12 postgraduates that went there, and we all played football, and we all had the same goal of being able to go on to college to play football. And I made a lot of great friendships and relationships along the way.
Can I circle back a little bit?
Yep.
Okay, that phrase, I don't know where I heard it. Going back to that, your family, your George and Karen, your sister, and any successful athlete, any successful person has support at home. And I knew your dad. Is your mom still with us? May I ask?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, my mom is still with us.
Okay. And I knew George, and I knew he was a charismatic type of dude at games and everything. What was the support like from your home?
It was second to none. I mean, I had all the support in the world from my mom and dad. Anything that I ever needed, they were right there with me, offering, if I needed cleats, to find a way to get me cleats or shorts or to get to practice, to work out. It was incredible. And, and you talk about family support, it went a lot farther than just my parents. My cousins, Todd, Troy, and Corey Prince, they were right there along the way as well. And, and I kind of briefly heard Troy's interview that you had, and I think he hit it spot on that they were more than cousins. They were really like big brothers to me. And it was nice because they helped kind of steer me in the direction that I needed to go. Always pushed me to be the best version of myself and to be the best, try to be the best athlete and hardest worker out there, which, I cherish because obviously as you move on in life, you learn a lot of lessons playing sports, and they really pushed me to show me what hard work can do for you.
And
go ahead.
Go ahead. Nope, you go ahead. It's your podcast.
That's, and I was able to, with, more of Todd and Troy, working with them as I was growing up at Greece School District. I did some grounds work growing up there. I did a lot of training with Todd and Troy at my lunchtime of, working out and running. And, I think Todd loved it because he pushed me to the point where, I'd be crawling to get off the field and he would be clapping and loving every second of it. You know how Todd is. He's awesome.
Absolutely.
So it's relationships that I'll cherish forever.
And I might get into it a little bit later, but when I first got into broadcasting, if you call it, was when we were covering Hilton football. That's the first thing we did. And we'd go and tape games. We'd plug into the varsity VHS tape, if people remember that. And that's when you were first on the scene. And just watching Todd and Troy come to games, you were their cousin, but they had pride in you like you were a brother. And after games, Todd and I would talk, or Troy and I would talk, and they took a tremendous amount of pride in what you did. And I think they always knew the hard work that you did, and that relationship, that's something that was awesome.
Yeah, it definitely is. I was actually sitting next to Todd yesterday at the boys' game and just, talking about reminiscing a little bit about old times, and we frequently have those conversations. So it's fantastic. Yeah.
All right. Well, very good. Mom, what was mom like? I mean, my mom was like, she always had to have the same dinner. The dinner worked. That uniform always had to be in the washer when you got home. Tell me a little bit about Karen and how she supported you.
Yeah. Karen was she was a hard worker. She was she worked at Kodak, and then she worked at some restaurants and was some I don't want to say hostesses at some restaurants. So she did work some evenings at times. She always worked hard. Always made sure that we had dinner on the table and make sure that we're all carved up before games. And she was also, a very big supporter. I think my dad was the supporter of pushing me to be the best athlete that I possibly could, and my mom would push me to be better academically than I was.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to have that balance a little bit, and because you need that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of see that a little bit in my house here, is that I push my kids to be, the best version of themselves and the best athlete. And I do stress being a student.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my wife, Shyla, she really stresses about being a student athlete,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of the same ways when I was kind of growing up.
Your sister, her name again is
Yep. Kelly
Kelly,
Streb, or Kelly Shockley. Yep.
and what Kelly Shockley is her married name. What was she like growing up with? I'm not asking you for any family secrets or anything, but
Mm-hmm.
is she an athletics student? What's she up to now? Do you see her often?
Yep. Actually, I will correct myself. Her married name is Kelly Richardson.
Okay.
Um, she was 2 years younger than me. She was an athlete. She played softball, a little bit of basketball. We are completely a little bit two different people. We kind of hung with two different crowds. I think she liked to have a good time. Hopefully that didn't come off the wrong way, but
Mm-hmm.
and now she's married with two kids in Greece. She owned her own hair salon, um, and she cuts hair and really attends to her boys, Jaden and Jackson. I'm proud of her because she's worked hard to get where she is today,
Mm-hmm.
and she's done well.
Um, does she cut your hair for free? I know, just a side
That's
note, smart aleck
uh,
comment. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
you were saying as you were growing up, you did two different elementary schools. You had
Mhm.
Northwood and then Village. Um, what was it like? Was there any difference between the two schools? As you know, I'm a Village elementary teacher, and
Yeah.
so that's the only school I've known. But what was your perspective from that point of view?
Well, I think hmm, it's really hard to say because it wasn't like I moved to go to Village and that it was a whole new set of kids, because it was the whole building at Northwood ended up going to Village. So it was pretty much, I would say, the same. I didn't notice any different, but then again, I was in third grade back then. I'm still here.
Okay, did it cut out on your end?
Yeah, it just showed myself. It didn't have you on there.
Okay, yeah, I had some problems with my internet here. So, what we were
Okay.
talking about was Northwood Village. Like, was it hard
Mhm.
adjusting from both schools? I guess is what I should ask.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think, with Northwood being closed for the year that it was closed, it's not like I was going to a whole different school, because a lot of those, well, I would say all of those kids went from Northwood to Village. So it was still that I had all of those same friends and nothing had really changed. So I kind
Oh,
of
that's
felt
good.
like it was the same. Yeah.
And then, at what point did you start getting into sports and realizing, I really love this stuff? I'm not too bad at it. Which sports did you pick up?
Yeah, so I started baseball at a young age. I want to say it was probably second grade, third grade, somewhere in there. And then I liked baseball, but I didn't love it. And that's when I started to move into football and started to play on C team. And the first year my dad signed me up for football, and the first time I got hit, I'm like, yep, I'm not liking this very much. And my dad kept pushing me to show up every single day, and it's funny because my first year playing football on C team, I played defensive end and only defense. I didn't play any offense. And then my second year, I was able to move into a quarterback role and had a bit more success doing that. And that's really when I started to love the game of football. In the same year, I started to play basketball, and I did that at St. Lawrence, and I played for Mike Lemke. Played there for 5th and 6th grade, and then moved from playing there over to the school ball and ended up playing modified over there in 7th grade.
Gotcha. Middle school. Let's go back to that a little bit. What were your recollections of middle school? It's a tough years for kids. You're just the adolescence and all that. What was that like in Merton Williams?
So Merton Williams, back in the day, that was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So you were there for 3 years. It was 6th grade was an interesting year because, I felt obviously pretty young compared to some of the 8th graders, but a lot of my friends growing up were a little bit older. So I was always able to kind of lean on them in case there was any trouble or if I was nervous about anything. They kind of helped steer me in that right direction, and as I moved through middle school, being able to, I think, playing sports helps develop a lot of friendships.
Sure does.
And being able to play modified football and, with those 7th and 8th graders, or 8th graders, I should say, kind of helps, again, steer me in that direction to make sure that I'm doing things the right way and really help develop those friendships.
And then as you moved into high school, 9th through 12th, who were some of your influential teachers, people that you learned a lesson from, maybe sometimes a hard lesson?
Yeah, so Dan Bates. Dan Bates is over at McQuaid. I was able to develop a great relationship with him, and I still have a great relationship with him, and, talk to him every great once in a while. And it's always nice catching up and talking about old times with him or, seeing how he's doing now. And, he always asks about my family, my mom and my kids and my wife. And, that's always nice. Chris Maffaletto was great. Earlier I said I wasn't the worst student. I wasn't the best student, but there were times that I did need some help. And, Chris Maffaletto was there to lend a hand. And I'll be forever grateful for that because he always stood by my side to make sure that, again, I was being steered in the right direction. Concentrate on your academics because if you don't, you may not reach goals that you have later on in life or by the time you're a senior. Rich Lapani, somebody who I look up to. He was there for me, in the recruiting process of what schools to look at, when schools came in, talking to schools, playing for him and then coaching for him now is something that, again, I guess I've been saying cherish a lot, but those are memories and things that I'll cherish for a long time because you see one side of him when you're a player. And then when you're a coach, you see the other side on how he is able to develop kids and develop relationships with those kids. And so they understand that he's there for you and try to make you be the best version of yourself. And then sometimes it doesn't always come off that way, but in the long run, maybe after you graduate, all of a sudden you look around, you're like, holy cow, this is exactly what he was talking about. And the same with Ori Me. Him and I growing up, I was fortunate enough to play varsity baseball as a 9th grader. And I was a catcher and I pitched and I played a little bit of infield. And Ori and I didn't always see eye to eye on things. And being able, once I graduated, all of a sudden there were times where I'm like, this is what Ori or Coach Me this is exactly what he was talking about. Everything that he does and talks about is for a reason to prepare you for after high school and after college and for things in life, So those are some people that really influenced me.
Now, you had one of the biggest moments. What year did you guys win the sectional title in football? Was that 94?
Oh, that was the fall of 94. Yep.
Okay. And just to refresh people's memory, that's when I first came on the broadcast scene, if you call it that. And myself and a couple friends, Eric Mezzopretti, Pat Geithner, we would follow the Hilton football team I would talk to Coach Lapani once a week, getting his take on it. He wouldn't talk to me very much, by the way, and we still never understood the big running game. But now being a coach in his program, I totally get it,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand the brand of football. And I think Tim Hughes was on that first team. Did you play
Yep.
with him as a sophomore year? Van Zeelen and
Yep.
I might be whatever. And
Yeah.
you were a sophomore on varsity, and that at the time was kind of unheard of. And anyone that's ever watched Hilton football knows that Coach Lapani features the tailback, and they take the ball
Mm-hmm.
25, 30 times. What was it like getting moved up as a young guy, and what do you remember from those early double sessions and preseasons?
Well, I'm gonna kind of start my freshman year.
Okay.
So, as I was moving up seventh, eighth, and ninth grade, I was able to. Seemed like I always played up a level, and there was a year where every year our family would go on a vacation. We'd go to Seneca Lake. We would rent a cottage for 2 weeks. We'd swim. We'd boat. We'd fish. We'd have s'mores. We'd have a great time. And there was one year. I believe it was my ninth grade year where I said, you know what? I'm not playing football. I don't want to go back because I don't want to do double sessions. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to fish and I'm going to have s'mores and I'm going to have a great old time with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And needless to say, my dad he was a little pissed at me, but hey, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up coming back, and after the first game that year, the JV season, I'm like, you know what? I want to play football now. And of course, I missed all double sessions, so I had to work my way back. Doing that, I had no idea that maybe my sophomore year I would have a chance to play varsity. Kind of going back and first couple practices of double sessions because I'd never done it before my sophomore year, and I'm like, wow, this is tough.
Mm-hmm.
All this running and getting hit by Chris Van Zeelen and Matt Flagg and Tim Hughes, and kind of question yourself a little bit. Am I mentally or physically ready for this? But Coach Lapani and Coach Harmon and Coach Bates, Coach Foreman, they all made sure that that I was going to be ready for that. They had confidence that I was going to develop those 2 weeks to hopefully step in and do what they expected me to do.
And so, was it from the get-go, your sophomore year, you had an inkling you were going to play varsity?
Yeah, because he had me up at the West Side camp. Kind of previous, he kind of brought me up to carry the ball a little bit. So once we got into doubles, I kind of figured from there, it was going to be I was going to kind of I wasn't sure if I was going to be the feature running back or not, because there was also Jay Gentile and John Wegman who were also there as running backs, and I wasn't sure how I was kind of rotate into that, and I kind of fit the role that Coach Lapani wanted me to fit, I guess.
And did you play just offense your sophomore year?
Sophomore year, I just played offense. Okay. Yeah.
All right, and explain a little bit about the regular season there, if you can remember that part.
Oh, Mike, that's a long time ago.
I'm doing the math. That's like 30 years ago, but
I took a lot of hits to the head. I guess first game was one of my my better games. I had, I think, 20 carries for 218 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a game that I'll always remember, obviously being my first varsity game, and it was hot. It was at East Rochester. East Rochester was pretty good that year. And we ended up, I think the final score was 21-7 or 28-7, and we were able to come out on top on that. I believe our second game was against Irondequoit. I played a little bit of defense in that game, and I ended up getting hurt in the first half, near the end of the first half, where I dove it from free safety and knocked a pass away and ended up dislocating my shoulder. And I didn't end up playing the rest of the game. Was able to finish the season out as we moved along. I didn't play defense after that because of my shoulder, because it would, pop in and out in games, and we just put it back in, and I'd go back in and keep on playing.
Mm-hmm.
That year we had some memorable games. That was the year that LeBeau Field was closed, and we played
Yeah.
all of our games on the JV field. And we had some outstanding games against Batavia. We score with, I think it was a minute and a half left to take the lead, and next thing you know, they drive down and they score to win the game with like 2 seconds to go. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was 25-24. Greece Arcadia game in the Mud Bowl where it was a torrential downpour for like 2 games or two days, and we ended up tying them 6-6. We end up later on seeing them in the semifinals where they end up beating us that year. And it ended our season.
And, okay, so that's sophomore year, right?
Yep, that was my sophomore year.
And then junior year. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, junior year, expectations were that at least within my friend group that we were supposed to be, the force to be kind of reckoned with. We had John Crumley, who was an incredible linebacker, fullback,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and pretty much 90% of my yards are because of him in the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
So we open the season with a Rondecoit, and I think we won 35-7 that game. Down the road, we end up playing Greece Athena. I think we were undefeated going into Greece Athena week 5 or week 6. We ended up losing that game. I didn't finish that game. I ended up, I guess the kind of a theme here is I get injuries every once in a while, and Todd and Troy will kind of say that I'm soft, but we ended up losing that game, and then as we moved into sectionals, we played Rondecoit, I believe it was, and we went into overtime with them after kicking the snot out of them first game of the season. Yeah, we ended up going into overtime. We won in overtime. And then we traveled to Fauver Stadium, ended up playing Batavia and beating them in the semifinals. And then probably one of the most memorable games was our championship run that we had going against Edison Tech in a triple overtime thriller, winning the game on 4th and 1. That was still talked about today, which is absolutely crazy. I get together with a lot of my friends on holidays, and we reminisce about old times, but that one game is something that comes up all the time.
Sure does. And before we go into the ins and outs of triple overtime, because I think I still have it on videotape somewhere with my voice screeching through the airwaves. One of the most exciting parts of my life, besides my marriage and the birth of my children. Maybe that's just something about me and less about you. Tell me a little bit about who was on that offensive line, because we all know that besides Crumley, which we all knew he got most of your yards for you because he was a beast.
Yeah, there was So you had Bob Streb, who was a tight end. You had Steve Marino, who was a tackle. Ronnie Lobdell, who was a tackle. Jeff Dincher was a center. This is awful because I can't remember who the 2 guards were. Sean Hearn, maybe. I think kind of rotated a little bit. And maybe might have been rotated a little bit. I think Sean played center, and Jeff Dincher might have played some guard. I can't remember who the other guard was.
Well, either way, whoever you've forgotten, it's the poor lineman. That's the curse of being a lineman. Sometimes you get forgotten. Quarterback and Z receivers. I think Sherwin was on that team, right?
Mike Sherwin, who was a awesome wide receiver, made huge catches, especially in that championship game. John Starwald was our quarterback at the time. He did a great job of leading our offense. Jeff Smith was a wide receiver for us. Timmy Starwald was a wide receiver for us. So it was a lot of really great players, a lot of really great men too.
And then so it was Edison, of course, and Fauver Stadium. Explain a little bit about. Let's go through what you remember of that fourth quarter. I think you had to come back a little bit and then explain the overtime situation.
Yeah, we ended up we had to come back because we were down. And I can't remember which touchdown came first. I can't remember if it was Mike Sherwin's touchdown or Bob Streb's touchdown. But as you know, the Hilton offense, we usually grind it out on the ground 90% of the time. But, Edison had a unbelievably fast defense. They were big up front, and they were shutting us down a little bit, where it was really tough to get those yards. And coach called a couple play action passes and hit Bob Streb for a touchdown, and then threw a fade pattern to Mike Sherwin for a touchdown. Like I said, I can't remember which one came first in the end of regulation or overtime, but those are two guys that stepped up and made huge plays for us to be able to give us the opportunity to go into OT.
And as you said, it was triple overtime. It was everybody was on the edge of their seat every single play. Go through that last play. I think you guys had a stop, so all you had to do was score. Is that true? Or
yeah, yep. So we got a stop on the previous possession, and we had scored a couple. I think we scored once, and AJ Pilato, who was our kicker at the time, they ended up blocking the extra point. So out of all of, I think all of the extra points in that game were blocked. And it's kind of funny because AJ always busts my chops and always says, "You owe me a big thank you." And I'm like, "What do you owe me a thank you for?" And he's like, "Because if I make one of those extra points, I'm the one getting tackled in the end zone, not you." So I tell him, "Oh, thanks. I'll buy you breakfast when you come into town." So
right.
So we end up stopping them, and then it was 4th and 1 from the 1, and we were in our double tight wishbone, and we ran a 45 blast to the left-hand side and punched it in for the victory. And that was a crazy time.
It sure was. It sure was. Check the videotape.
Yep.
Yeah, I do remember that. I remember going down to the locker room. I wanted to interview some guys, and you guys were just spent. Sherwin was out of it. Crumley was out of it. I mean, you just pulled off a great win, but it was just an exhausting game physically and emotionally and mentally. But it was one of the greatest games I've ever watched. And let's see here. The next game wasn't so great, so we won't go through that state game. And forget that. And
I will tell you, I don't mean to interrupt. I will tell you that was a great experience, though.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't end up on the winning side, playing at the University of Buffalo in that huge brand new stadium that they had at the time. Williamsville came in and kicked the snot out of us, but it was a pretty cool experience being able to play in a large college atmosphere like that.
So that was your junior season. What were some post-season awards that you got, and then some of your other teammates?
I believe myself and John Crumley, we ended up being on the All Greater Rochester team that year. I think we were Division Players of the Year, Co-Players of the Year. I know that there was quite a bit of all-county players between Mike Sherwin, Bob Streb, I think John Starwald. I think Steve Marino might have been an all-county player as well. And Ronnie Lobdell, who was a junior at the time, was the same way. So a lot of awards, probably not enough to some of the guys that, like you said earlier, offensive linemen don't always get recognized, and sometimes cornerbacks and safeties don't always get recognized either. And those are the guys that down the road made some pretty good big plays for us.
Now, as a player who's had success and has been around success as a coach, how do you prepare teams now for a big game? Like, how do you get that mentality going and stuff like that?
I think that's a great question, Mike. Things that I do personally is I watch a lot of film, try to evaluate a lot of, not just plays or defenses teams run, but try to figure out, what's the other team's, weakest player or weakest spot on the field. Try to address that with, when I was at Elba and at Arcadia, I don't want to say we would try to find somebody to pick on, but that's kind of how we would go through it. I'd watch a lot of film with a lot of the players, 3 times per week, trying to prepare them, and really was trying to teach them to understand that you got to kind of win the day. You got to go. You got to work hard every single day. Concentrate on more about us at times to make sure that our fundamentals are really, I guess, honed in and making sure we're doing things the right way for us to be successful. That's kind of how, hopefully that kind of answers that question, how I kind of go about preparing myself and kind of my teams.
And then if you can remember back then when you're 16, 17-year-old kid and your mind's going crazy, how would you have prepared for big games like that? Like, did you have a ritual, a routine? What was that like?
So we would have a ritual where me and the guys, we would go out for breakfast Friday mornings, Saturday mornings, and this is kind of a funny little story. So I would always get pancakes, and for the first time that I ordered, and it was at the Hilton Family Diner, and as a joke, I said, I'll take chocolate chip pancakes with no chocolate chips. And yeah, kind of stupid. And
it's all right.
So because of that, I had to order that every single Friday and Saturday morning until we lost. And, I wore the same shirt. I wore the same socks, that kind of stuff, and always hung out kind of with the same group of guys, AJ Pilato, Mark Schimmelhorn, Sean Hearn, Tim Starwald. At least that was more of my senior year. My junior year was, kind of the same guys, but, add John Crumley in there and Jeff Dincher and a little bit of Bob Streb and Mike Sherwin.
Yeah. Now, you also played a couple more sports. You had played basketball and baseball in high school as well?
Yep. Played basketball and baseball.
Yeah, and things that you learned from those teams, maybe some successes that stick out to you, or maybe some things you learned in defeat.
Yeah, it's funny because I was listening to Coach Mee's podcast, and I know that he mentioned on there about playing Pittsford Sutherland, and there was a year that I was a part of the team when we ended up losing to Pittsford Sutherland by 50 points. And then I was on the team where we were able to beat them the next year three times, and I think that taught me that, yeah, you might lose by 50 one year, but your hard work and determination the next year can definitely change the outcome. And, that's something that Coach Me always really, really pushed upon us to make sure that we were always doing things, the little things, the right way, because in the long run, it's going to pay off, in defeat, I'd say my senior year in baseball, I want to say we were the higher seed, and we hosted Pittsford Mendon, who we had beat 2 times in the year already, and we hosted them first round of sectionals, and they absolutely smoked us. So, even I guess going into a game, even though you might have beat somebody twice pretty handily, doesn't mean that it's going to be that easy the third time.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's that's life, right? I mean,
it is. Learn more from a loss than you do from a win. Of course, you say that when you're really ticked off after a loss, but
right.
And then when you went to college, you went to prep school first. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Went to
and in Pennsylvania, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Well, and that experience you said was pretty good. You had a core group of friends. What were your studies like there? I mean,
so prep school was different. It was part of it was high school because there were still high school kids there. There was K through 12, and then there was 12 of us that were postgraduates. I didn't want to go at first. I got down there the first week and I was homesick, and I, calling home, I'm like, come pick me up. I can't do this. And my coach down there at the time, Matt DiBernardo, kind of like, he took me in and he's like, listen, he goes, you got to stay. It's just the way it is. You'll get through this. You'll be fine in 2 weeks, and you'll develop great friendships with these guys. And it was very similar to a freshman year in college because you're going to a place that you really don't know. You don't know anybody because there was nobody from Hilton that went there with me, so it was all new faces. My roommate was from Pennsylvania. I had no clue who he was until I got there the first day. you know. But it was similar to high school, but there were separate buildings that you actually had to walk to get to math or social studies or science
Mm-hmm.
or study hall, that kind of stuff. So it was similar. It wasn't, I had to dress up every day. I had to wear khaki pants and a collared shirt. Sometimes I had to wear a shirt and tie and a coat and
Right.
tie. Um, so it was definitely it was a great experience because besides the football piece of it, it taught me how to study. It taught me how to be on my own without my family around and how to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I developed a lot of great friendships that I still have today.
And then you moved on to Long Island University.
Yep. And then I went to Long Island University.
And was that a
I went there
football
for
decision? Was that like a
it
football
was a
decision
football
there?
decision.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that was something coming out of high school. I really wanted to play college football. And um, I I'm not very proud by any means of saying that I was not a great student, but
Mm-hmm.
not being a great student kind of, shot me in the butt a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I had opportunities to go to some bigger schools that I couldn't because of my grades and that I didn't
Mm-hmm.
concentrate on getting my math work done or social studies work, and um, I regret that today because one of the schools that I really wanted to go to was Syracuse. Like that was my favorite place, and it
Mm-hmm.
still is today. Like I love watching their football and basketball, even though they may not be doing very well right now. But
Mm-hmm.
I still loved it, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I push that and stress that on my kids, on the kids that I coach, and kind of tell them my story that listen, you got to get the schoolwork done because you may not be able to go to this college that you want to go to if you're not doing it right. And here's why.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of
Mm-hmm.
just tell them that I wasn't a great student. So, but yes, going to Long Island was more of a football decision because they gave me money to go there. Um, and, you know, I, I enjoyed it. I had a good time down there. They moved me from running back to fullback, and I'm I'm not the type of person that could play fullback for 35 plays and
Mm-hmm.
smashing heads together and lead
Mm-hmm.
blocking on blast or power. I'm not that type of person. I had to do that my freshman year there, where I redshirted, and every day in practice I'd play fullback and line up and hitting guys that are 6'3", 240, and I'm like, yeah, I'm 5'10", 205 pounds. That's just
Mm-hmm.
not. No, it wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, made some good friendships down there. Was able to go into the city almost every single weekend, and when I wasn't with my uncle, hang out in the city because it was fairly close, probably about 30-minute drive. Um, was able to go to some New York Knicks games and go to some Yankee games, and which that was really cool being able to go to the old Yankee Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I stayed down there for 1 year, and then I was able to come home and transfer up here to Brockport and, play football at Brockport and obviously be a student there too. Nice part about Brockport is I had a great coach there too, Rocco Salamone. God rest his soul. He was first day that I remember meeting him back in high school when he would come talk to me when we were there at the West Side camp, because back in the day, the West Side camp used to be at Brockport. And I met him a long time ago, and he was always like, listen, you're always welcome to come to Brockport. And, those are the little things that I'll never forget, because those are the people that you kind of, hey, you know what? He kind of cares about me a little bit, coming to make a conversation, telling me that the door is always open. And luckily it was open when I was able to transfer to go play for him. When I was at Brockport, I was able to be part of two great teams. Well, 4 years I played, but my last two, we were nationally ranked in the top 10, was able to make the NCAA playoffs as a 1 seed my junior year. And then I want to say we were a 3 or 4 seed my senior year. So it was kind of a great moment. My junior year, we're the number 1 seed. We get a first round bye, and we end up having a home game against Springfield. And I've never seen Brockport Stadium. It's a 10,000 seat stadium, and that place was packed on Thanksgiving weekend in the snow, mud bowl. Unfortunately, we ended up losing 13-6 to a really good Springfield team, But, then going into my senior year, I kind of was changing positions. I played a lot of different positions in college. I played a little bit of fullback. I started at quarterback and running back and wide receiver. So it was crazy because I didn't play quarterback. I want to say till my freshman year in high school, I played a little bit of quarterback, or even 8th grade year, I played some quarterback. So all of a sudden now, my sophomore year in college, all of our quarterbacks get hurt, and Rocco Salomon. I'm kind of feel bad. I'm kind of going all over the place here, but Rocco Salomon goes, "You played quarterback in high school, didn't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, middle school." He goes, "All right." He goes, "You're starting for us this week against Buff State." I go, "Buff State, like the school that John Crumley goes to?" And he's like, "Yeah. So that was pretty cool playing against John. And there's a picture floating around somewhere where I'm carrying the ball and John comes up and hits me, and he lit me up pretty good, and the ball popped out and I fumbled, and the ball's in the air as he's hitting me, and I'm just like, oh, hopefully that picture doesn't surface. So I played quarterback my sophomore year, and then moved to wide receiver and a little rotational tailback junior year, and then full-time wide receiver my senior year. So a lot of different spots that I was playing in college. But it was fun.
It helps you with your offensive standpoint as a coach and everything. You played a lot of different positions. I've seen seniors at their last game, and it's crushing to watch them know that the road's over. What was that like when you knew your playing career was over? And how would you advise parents or something that may have that type of kid that is facing the end of their playing days?
Yeah, I would say, being a high school senior with the ability to go to college, to play in college, you may have a little bit different of a mindset, right, because you see that you still have that ability to play. And then, so from going to that standpoint, it was still hard my last high school game because I knew that I wasn't going to be playing with my best friends anymore. But that was tough. My parents were very supportive with that, but also pushing the fact of, listen, yeah, I know it's hard, but you have the ability to go on and continue to play, and you'll be able to develop some new friendships and relationships with your teammates. May not be the same because college is completely different than high school, But when I did get to that point my senior year, and we ended up losing to Rowan University at Rowan, it took a while to sink in. It was in the NCAA playoffs, and I just remember sitting on the bus on the way home, and I'm like, holy cow, like, that's it. I'm done. I'm never going to put a helmet and shoulder pads on ever again. And, and that's kind of part of the reason why I wanted to coach, was because football has done a lot for me. It's opened a lot of doors. It's been with me since fourth grade. And I owe a lot back to the game. I owe a lot to other kids of teaching them and trying to show them, I don't know, this is maybe the path that you should go or shouldn't go. But there was a lot of the stuff that I was thinking on the bus, like, okay, maybe if I get into coaching, that, the game will always be with me. I'm not going to be playing, but it'll always be there, and something that I can maybe share with my kids, many years to come down the road, But my parents were always very supportive. Were very supportive in any decision that I made when it came to playing football or basketball or baseball. And, they were there when I got off the bus and said, listen, yeah, your playing career's over, but you did a lot of great things. And, those are things that I'll always remember. I'll always remember playing back at Hilton and, running a, I don't know, 75-yard kickoff return for a touchdown and
Mm-hmm.
seeing my family in the corner of the end zone all cheering. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's all. Those are the things that you try to remember. It's not easy. Like I said, it's not easy right when you're done playing or you're walking off the field for the last time, but those are the things that I remember that helped me kind of push through it and get through it.
You kind of led to my next transitional part. Talk a little bit about your wife and your children.
Yeah, so my wife Shyla, gosh, we've been married
Uh-oh.
19.
Uh-oh.
My math is awful since 2005. She works at Strong West. She's in charge of all of the imaging center at Strong West Hospital, University of Rochester in Brockport. We have 2 kids. Cooper is my oldest. He's 15. He'll be 16 in April. My
And
daughter
driving.
Maya. Oh, it's constantly talked about in his house because he's like buying me a car, and I'm like, no, I'm not buying you a car, but I go, you got to kind of earn it there, buddy. But
Uh-huh.
it is amazing to think. Like, I feel like yesterday he was 2 or 3 feet tall, and
Mm-hmm.
now all of a sudden he's going to be 16. It's crazy, and he's a sophomore in high school. My daughter turns 14 a week from Friday, and another one. It's like it's crazy. You're in 8th grade. You're going to be a freshman next year. Time flies. Time absolutely flies. Um, my son, he's involved in 2 sports, football and basketball. Played JV this year, both football and basketball. Very proud of him. He works hard. He wears his emotions on his sleeves, which is could be a good thing and be a bad thing. But I think he learns every single day that sometimes you just got to kind of let things go and continue to work through it and push through it. And then he also coaches the unified basketball team with
Okay.
Mrs. Conley, and very proud of him for that. Very, very proud of him for that because he does a lot of great things of giving back to the community with not only coaching the unified basketball team, but he is heavily invested in North Paw Rescue and then
Mm-hmm.
this organization that he's trying to start called Free Mill, where he's trying to rescue a bunch of dogs from puppy mills and trying to really spread the word about how bad dogs are treated at these puppy mills where there may be hundreds of dogs giving birth to puppies, and so he's doing everything he can to try to shut those down. And he's had meetings with um, Josh Jensen and some people in Albany, some Zoom meetings with some people in Albany to try to get some bills moving forward to try to get these puppy mills shut down. He works very, very hard at that. Um, my daughter Maya, she's, like I said before, she's an 8th grader. She is a basketball and lacrosse player. She used to play soccer, but she sent Coach Kraus a very nice letter saying, "Coach, thank you for all of all your hard work and dedication towards me for being a player my 7th grade year, but I am officially retiring as a 8th grader from modified soccer." So I thought that was pretty cute that
Mm-hmm.
that she said that she was retiring from that. So um, I was able to coach her in the Mod A girls basketball this season. Um, that was fun. We struggled a little bit, didn't do as nearly as well as I thought we would, but I think the girls worked hard and were able to develop and get a little bit better on some of their skills. Um, she also plays lacrosse, so we'll see kind of what happens this spring with lacrosse. So, and
Well,
she's National Junior Honor Society student, so she doesn't get her academics from
from
this
Dad.
guy. So,
Well, I can definitely say, I haven't been around your daughter very much, but your son is very personable, and he's always shakes hands with me and everything.
well,
Tough
thank
question
you.
here, though. Um,
Yep.
as a former star athlete, okay, and I actually when were you inducted into the Hall of Fame? I forgot to do that, the Athletic Hall of Fame. My bad.
Oh no, that's trying to think of the year. I want to say 2001, 2002, somewhere in
Okay.
there. Yeah, was able to. That was a very special time because I was inducted with my cousin Jenna,
Mm-hmm.
who was a great athlete at Hilton as well,
Sure.
and it was always kind of neat to be able to share that experience with her and be inducted and have speeches and have dinner and how they do things. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
And then a couple more questions here. As an athlete yourself, a very strong athlete, how do you balance wanting the best for your children, but also trying to keep that distance where maybe you don't put too much pressure on them? Because I think there are a lot of ex jocks or athletes that go over that line and end up, damaging the relationship. I'm not saying anything in your case,
Mm-hmm.
but you've been around athletics long enough. You've coached enough kids. You've seen enough parents doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing. What would you advise those people?
Well, Mike, I think that's a great question because a lot of people say you try to live through your kids, right? And um, I've learned, when I was coaching Cooper at a very young age, I learned that he's got to be his own kid and be able to develop his skills and to be his own athlete, and that I I can't expect my kids to be like I was. Would it be? Would I? I'm very very proud of my kids, and however they grow up and be whatever, that's awesome. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, I would I would yell at Cooper, and there'd be times where we wouldn't talk on the way home,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still trying to learn. I don't want to say completely how to handle that situation because I think um, I I could sit there and say, "Geez, why didn't you do this in the game?" I could do that in the game. I've never said that, but I'll say, "Why didn't you do this in the game?" And I don't want to hear it. Okay, well, we're not going to talk about
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
having my wife tells me sometimes just let them be.
Mm-hmm.
Your kids are their own person. And you got to be supportive and understand that they're not going to be like you. Maybe they will. I don't know, but just let them develop on their own. You can be there to push them.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely push them to be the best that they can, and I
Mm-hmm.
sometimes probably a little bit over the top, but I walk away and let them be because I've seen them get pretty upset with me at times when if they ask me, oh, how do you think I played?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you played very well.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Right.
I've said that a couple times, but they don't like it. So kind of learn to kind of step back and just say, hey, we'll talk about it later. Go enjoy some time with your friends or whatever, and when we're ready, we'll sit and talk about it. Or when I'm ready, and because I'm very competitive.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And
Yeah,
you know,
and
I mean, I have enjoyed coaching with you. I told you I'm just a mod B guy, but I think it's like the varsity level. And one of my best experiences was coaching on the same sidelines with you that one time. Um,
I
and
appreciate that, and
yeah, we
it's
beat Gates.
likewise, Mike.
Okay. And it was like, Tony, you can run the offense. And you were like, really? And I'm like, yeah, just I'll put guys in the line or whatever. And you ended up having Gasor throw that touchdown pass to Rieger, which I hope I
Yeah.
see a lot more of in the next 2 or 3 years. Um, Last question though,
Mhm.
um, and if you had to give 3 words to describe Hilton, your experience, the village, what would they be?
3 words to describe Hilton and the village.
Or final
Supportive.
thoughts? Okay.
Um, I think Hilton, being a small town, is very supportive of their school district. I think they're a football community. When you come out on a Friday night and you see 3,000 to 5,000 people, and sometimes more,
Mm-hmm.
um, that brings that small town football, hard nosed, blue collar type of community, um, and a loving community. And I
Mm-hmm.
say that because it seems like there's always people there in the time of need when somebody may need it, and that's what has always drawn me back to Hilton. Is I like the small town feeling of knowing everybody. Sometimes it could be really, really great, and other times it may not be. But that's kind of what really drew me back to here. And that's why I love it. I love this place.
And for those of you that don't know it, Tony is heads groundskeeper of the Hilton Central School District, so you definitely see him out and about around the fields, mowing lawns, doing whatever. But any final thoughts you got there, Coach?
Mike, I appreciate you having me on. Hopefully, told a little bit about myself, and I don't know. I look forward to more of your shows and listening to you because I think you do I'm serious. I think you do a fantastic job, and it's really cool on being able to learn and about people here in Hilton and really showcasing our wonderful community that we do have. You know.
And I'll just echo what you said about getting into coaching. You want to get back to the community, get back to the kids, and this is kind of my way of doing it. So, this has been Mike Hayes along with Tony Streb on the Big H podcast. Stay tuned for future episodes in the future. Good night, Tony.
Good night, Mike. Thanks again for having me.
Yep.